Okay, as always, nice and easy as we start off, giving yourself plenty of time to settle in. Just stand in, feet hip width apart, so you've got this sense of parallel lines, not they're imaginary lines, but the feet to hips, hips to shoulders, so that there's this feeling of support from your legs for the whole of your body. Toes pointing forward, forward as much as possible. We recognise that some people in the feet will naturally turn out, but try as much as possible to have in this stance the toes pointing in the same direction as your body's facing, and then weight a little bit forwards, hips dropping back, and just starting to turn in the centre of the body. It helps to get that feeling of settling in. Just take a couple of slow, gentle breaths. Feeling in lower back, hips and buttocks, almost as though they're overhanging. A bit like the feeling you might get if you're sitting on top of a fence or gate, except that you're not leaning forward, which you probably would be if you were sitting on the fence. So we have this balance between your weight going forward, but your hips going back, and we're held between the two. That's an idea that is repeated in many ways. We're sinking down, but as our hips drop back, that draws the head up. So again, there's a kind of upward energy and a downward energy, for instance. The term sometimes used is that we're suspended between heaven and earth. So we feel held by a balance of forces, of energies in the body and around the body, as well as the obvious sort of support that we get from our legs and the front of our body supported by our back. A little more subtly, perhaps, there's a feeling of being supported from within the body, and as the big muscles of the body that we habitually use to support ourselves begin to condition and are able to maintain the postures and the movements without stiffening up, then we start to get a deeper sense of support. And that goes right down into the skeleton. Over a period of time, we can begin to gain some kind of confidence in those very natural support mechanisms that our body has. And that, again, feeds back into this feeling of releasing tightness and stiffness in the body. We realize increasingly that we don't actually need it. This is an ongoing process in Tai Chi. One of the outcomes, you could call it, of this is that without that tight gripping feeling in certain parts of the body, there's just more space there. And that space allows for the movement. So one way of looking at this is that we just allow the movement to fill that space, not strain against the boundaries of it. And that movement, that energy flowing through the body, like water flowing down the hill, will erode out more space over a period of time. So it's an ongoing process of cultivating that spacious quality. And it's intentional. We are aware of what we're doing. And just as we acquire more space physically, so that focus of attention gives us a bit more space mentally as some of the distractions, some of the sort of thoughts going through our head are sort of gently displaced in a way by the focus of attention in our body. So what you may find, for instance, is that if you could focus on your back and maybe just aware of the interplay of the muscles in your back, maybe aware of the weight of your arms as they swing around and the effect that has in your shoulders. And it's all very general at this point. We're not trying to target certain things. This is the preparation, the warm-up. And so we're practicing this integration of mind and body, the increasingly deep focus of awareness, the lead on from that, which is bringing a quality of intention to our movements, as well as the obvious physical changes that begin to take place. These are ongoing processes through all of the exercises, and over a period of time become not automatic, but sort of intuitive, I would say. And so with that, they begin to gradually flow over into the rest of our lives, and we begin to feel the benefits of this in our daily lives, our movements and activities. Sometimes we might just look for that intuitive sense in the exercises. Other times we might, as I've just been doing, be more specific. But the overall aim is to not have to think too hard about any of these things, but to be aware of them, to intend them in a kind of what we might call a subconscious way. So these practices are as much a meditation as they are exercises. And sometimes I think we get more out of arts like Tai Chi and Qigong if we regard them as moving meditation. You will get your exercise. They are strong physical movements, as you know, you may be feeling this in your legs, of course. So that exercise element is happening, but we're not trying to just space out. We're not trying to, in a way, distract ourselves from what we're doing and just sort of swing along without awareness. Now, as you turn your hands palm forwards, raise them up a little bit. It's almost like your hands are hanging from the ceiling. So my elbows are lower than my hands. And that helps to stop our shoulders and upper back, chest stiffening up. And your hands drop down. Now, turn one foot out and step forward with the other foot. The front foot is pointing forward, keeping the width of your step, and just gently moving your weight forwards and backwards. So now we're actively using the muscles of our legs. And again, we want to try and just let them begin to soften a little bit. We'll come back to this idea of softening in a few moments. Let your weight drop into each foot. Those more experienced with this, you could think of this movement in 4 stages. One is the weight moving. So say on 1, I'm moving to my front leg. 2 is that period of settling in which my center turns. 3, I move my weight back into my back leg, and 4 is this. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't get too caught up on the count, because what will happen is those stages will overlap a little bit. They won't totally eclipse each other, but they will overlap. But as I said earlier, sometimes we break movements right down to really identify key aspects. And then over a period of time, they reintegrate in a smoother way. And sort of dialogue, as it were, between the transfer of your weight and the turn of your center, again, is a key element in Tai Chi and Qigong. And then change over. The length of your step is about the same or slightly longer than the width of your step. So as though you're standing on the diagonal corners of a square paving slab or something. The turning in your upper body is very light, as though the image sometimes given is like a weather vane just blowing gently in the breeze. We're aiming to be able to move with no resistance to the movement within our bodies. Shake out. So to soften, to release, to yield, to relax, to let go. All these are words and terms used to describe what I've just been talking about. Chinese term is sung. It covers all of these things and more. It doesn't really matter which term you use. It's the physical experience of it that we're actually looking for. So if you take a fist, I'm going to come a bit closer to the camera. If I hold my fist here like this, very tight, I squeeze my fingers in, I can feel the tension going all the way down through my arm. Everything's very, very hard. If I just relax until everything flops down, there's no structure there. But if I go from this, if you look at this bit of the fist, if I do this, if I just create a hollow fist, a lot of that tightness goes away, and that transition from the tightly clenched fist to the more open fist is one way that we can experience this process of releasing, of softening. None of these terms are totally accurate, by the way. So with that in mind, just bring your attention to your chest, upper back, and shoulders, and very gently. This is not meant to be a strong exercise. Just sort of put your shoulders in, squeeze your chest, put your muscle of your chest back, and then slowly release. Notice how that releasing feels through your body, particularly in the upper part of it. Do that a few times. And you may get a sensation of dropping, for instance. You sometimes get a sensation of flowing inwards. And notice, if you bring your attention to your rib cage, your chest cavity, that when we release that tightness, it doesn't just suddenly collapse, because your ribs are there to maintain the shape. And so this gives us a clue as to where we find support within the body, the area of the skeleton and so on. And then try the same thing in the middle of your body, lower back, belly, hips, buttocks, down into your knees. And again, just sort of pull your hips in, pull your belly in, and release. Pull your belly in and release. And again, notice what is happening in your body. Gain a sense of dropping downwards, you feel, but also flowing inwards. Knees remain soft, they slightly bent, but this is really what we call rooting down. It enables our center of gravity to drop, and this too is an essential principle in Tai Chi, of course. Rooting down gives us the foundation for the movement apart from anything else. And so from this position, I stay here. As you feel that sense of dropping through your hips and your lower back, just let the hips follow that movement back down. Careful with your knees until you feel that the legs are about to push you up, and then come up to that top position. Don't lock your knees back. Release again in your hips and your shoulders, feel your body quite naturally going down. We're yielding to the force of the pull of gravity rather than straining against it. Body expanding upwards a little bit and then dropping down. Be aware that when we come up, we're not lifting the center of gravity up. you root down, and like a plant, it grows out of that. So you could imagine your center of gravity dropping through the ground, and then your legs, maybe you can imagine being like the stem of a plant or the trunk of a tree, growing out of that, but then unlike the plant or the tree, sinking back in. The body expanding and contracting. This is mostly about our legs and hips, but to see, you may be aware of changes in what we think of as the upper part of our body as well. As you sink back in your hips, the pelvis would tend to tuck under, and so what's happening in your back and your belly is important. If you're holding your belly in tight, block that process. Remember, we're trying to move without resistance. Bring your hands around in front of you as though you're cradling a ball, and as you push up, your elbows being pushed out, and then pressing down. So I call this exercise rooting down because of the emphasis on that rooting down. Another aspect relating to this releasing feeling is the way that we use the image of moving through water, or moving through, as though the air were thicker around us. Because when we do that, when we move in water, most of us will quite intuitively soften a little bit in the joints. We know that if we sort of keep our body hard, we have to work harder. It's like if you get a bowl of water, push your hand slowly in a relaxed way, the water gives way. But if you slap the top of the water, it feels quite hard. So releasing, sung, rooting down, softening, yielding, all of these qualities are relating to each other. They're really all part of the same process of cultivation. And as that continues, we begin to feel more and more subtle changes in our body, particularly the upper part of our body. But don't ignore what's happening in your legs. Now, turn your hands palm out, sorry, fingers out, palm down, and this time your arms are pushed outwards. This is the exercise, the wild goose. So another image here is the bird in flight, or maybe just waving a feather up and down in the air. And again, that gives you that sense of what we might call a soft resistance. So that stronger feeling deeper in the body. Initially, we think of the area in and around the skeleton, gradually expands, and we develop what we sometimes refer to in Tai Chi as inner strength. And this is an aspect of Tai Chi very much from the martial side, but it's very applicable in all sorts of circumstances, I think. Not just about fighting. In fact, rarely do we have to use it, hopefully. And then letting your hands drop down, all the way down. Again, your elbows pushing out with the expansion. Drawing your fingers around in a nice smooth circle, just parting the fingers. Try and just be aware of the effect of gravity on your body. You're wanting gravity to pull you down into your feet, not over there or over there. If your attention wanders off, which it inevitably does, or if you find that you're paying too much attention to, say, your arms and your hands, and you've lost that sense of what's happening your legs, then just very gently sort of nudge your attention back. Don't jerk your attention back or look for a very sort of hard-edged sense of concentration. And then changing, dragon plucks the stars from the sky, focusing on one side from your foot up through the side of your body, into your hand and your fingers. Wind your arm around, again, a hollow fist, and pull down. Changing sides. So just as our body expands and contracts, and in these exercises so far, that has involved a definite movement up and down in our hips, although it won't always do that from the outside. So there's this cyclical process, we could call it, of expansion and contraction, and going back to that drawing of your attention back into your body, that too can become a cyclical process. We don't want to cut ourselves off from the environment around us. We don't want to get distracted. You know, noise from outside might distract us in one way or another. We just recognize that, we bring our attention back. And you might choose to relate that to the contracting stage of the movement, whichever movement you happen to be on. Expanding, contracting. Expanding, contracting. One of these on each side. If you're new to this, don't expect to gain all these points straight away. These are the ongoing process of Tai Chi. And however long you've been doing it, just focus on the aspects that are most obvious and most immediate to you. For the next couple of exercises, you don't actively go up and down, but try and maintain this slight dropping back in your hips so that you're allowing for free passage through your body. And that pull of gravity downwards also provokes a push upwards. It's like in water, if you push a ball down into water, as soon as you start to do that, you feel the response from the water, in a sense, pushing back up. So as we stand like this, we're allowing space for two movements. Again, a cyclical movement, down with the pull of gravity and up with the common responsiveness of our body to that. Bringing your hands to your sides. And just the first and the last stage of this exercise, pushing up and bringing your hands back down to rest beside your hips for a moment. And then pushing up again, but this time letting your elbows drop so it becomes a push out to the side. Okay, we have this rhythm of expansion and contraction, drawing our attention to the center part of our body, the area between hips and pelvis and waist, which is the area that we want to feel is dropping towards the ground. So this becomes an important focal point for our attention. The hands should remain slightly in front of your shoulders. There, not too far in front, but not pulled back either. Just see if you can get a sense for what's happening in your back. Almost like your back's being massaged lengthways and then sideways. Maybe you could also feel that in the front of your body. So then without losing that quality of movement in your back. You push your hands out sideways. Remember not pulling them back behind your shoulders. And you turn a little bit in your hips and your waist. That changes the direction of movement. And then back. So don't twist your shoulders around. Do that in the other direction. And back. And then facing forwards and pushing out. So the turning in the center of your body has begun to create a different pattern that is expressed through your arms. We start off with the upward movement. Expanding and contracting. Expanding and then contracting, but this time in association with the turn in your center. The other direction again, if that image of the weather vane was helpful, you can imagine you've got that kind of central pole that you're turning around. You may even be able to apply that quality of releasing. In theory, you could apply it at any time, but often we find that the most convenient time to really focus on that is in the contracting stage of the movement. Again, people with a bit more experience, see if you can apply that process of releasing, of sung, as you push out as well. And you may find that you get a little bit more movement. One more round. Still maintaining that basic posture, hips hanging back. Find it strong in the muscles of your legs. Letting your hands drop down. And then with the next round of expansion, pushing one hand out, palm of your hand facing outwards, your arm curving up to that imaginary center line and then straight down. It's called circling palms. It's a half circle really, isn't it? Expanding again through that side of your body in a similar way that we felt earlier in Dragon Plucks the Stars from the Sky. A little bit different in the shoulder because of the swing out. And we can add to this if it's comfortable for you with a little turn here. Again, being careful not to twist our spines. And then change sides. And then, if it's comfortable for you, just add in the turn. Try not to lean over though. Remember, like the weather vane swinging around the central pole. Let your hands come to rest. Now, just again, focusing on the center part of your body, just sinking down and pushing up. We sometimes say that we sit into the hips or sit into the ground. So it's almost like, you know, this part of the body is dropping to the ground. All the time we do this and our pelvis remains level, then we're more likely to be upright. We're going to change that now for the next two movements. Be very careful with your back and your knees with this. I'll show the movement quite big so you can see what's going on, but that's not an indication that you should be doing it that big. This time, as I go down, I deliberately push my hips back so my pelvis tilts. And as a result, my head and shoulders go forward. Then I allow gravity, I yield to the pull of gravity in that area of lower back, hips and buttocks. So I let that area drop down and it brings my head and shoulders up very smoothly. And I push up, forward. We're going to use this movement in the next two exercises, but just focus on this a little bit. Feel what's happening in your back as you go forwards. Although it's a very gentle movement coming up, or relatively gentle movement coming up, it's still very strong in the back, so be careful. But essentially what we're doing is allowing gravity to pull our hips down to come upright. So the movement into the upright posture in the upper part of the body can be very smooth and open rather than straining, stiffening in our shoulders. Now this time, let your arms follow the movement. This is called rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. And again, maybe with the feeling of just releasing, but remember, move as far as you're comfortable and just trying to be aware of that feeling of spaciousness, allowing the movement within your body. I can get to about here and I can still feel that. If I go to here, now suddenly I'm tightening and I've lost that sense of the internal flow, that feeling of the energy flowing through my body. Rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. Again, this idea of allowing gravity to help us to come upright illustrates a principle that really comes from the martial side of Tai Chi, where we don't fight force with force, but rather try and move with that force. Much the same way as a sailor might use the sails of the boat at certain angles so that the wind, rather than blowing the boat over, actually propels the boat along. One more time. As you come up this time, let your hands come to rest in front of your hips, palm down. Go back to the horizontal movement a moment. Just turn and notice how that brings your hands along. And then turn to your left, so mirror my movements. Push your hips back, and that pushes your hands forwards. Swing your hips across to the other side. And then let the hips drop down and turn back to the front. Change direction, turn to your right. And you begin to sweep your hands around in the circle. This is called polishing the table. Again, very carefully, knees and hips and back. show you from the back what this looks like. Watch my hips and lower back. I turn, I push back and drop down a little bit. Sweep around, nice and soft in your arms and your hands. And back. Polishing the table. One more time. Good. And then just let your hands drop down. Swing your arms around a little bit, like turning in the center of your body. Just to, again, loosen up the shoulders. Nice steady rhythm, nice fluid movement. And just let your body come naturally to a halt. Give your legs a little shake. So the thing about the range of movement, you should always feel that you could have moved a little bit further. We're not trying to stretch, we're trying to extend, certainly, but that's a gradual process that is cultivated, like getting a plant to grow. But we always want to feel as though we could have moved a little bit further, and that helps to maintain this spacious quality within the body. And one of the things, of course, is this sense of movement, of energy flowing through the body. We want that to become a very harmonious quality. So let's change the stance. From this, let's again go into a forward stance. So turn your left foot out. That's an angle you can play about with. Step forward again with your left foot. And just transferring your weight. One thing you can do, going back to this releasing feeling, is just pause slightly with your weight forwards, about 60% of your weight here, releasing down through your hips, your knees, ankles, and into the sole of your foot, just to feel that the contact with the ground is much stronger. And then when you go back, again, releasing. It's just really emphasizing this. You can get to the point where that process of releasing can really be quite quick. And again, this then begins to have an impact on our daily movements. It means that we've got a stronger sense of contact with the ground through the root, through the sense, almost as though your feet are sort of sinking into the floor. This is a great advantage for our stability. As much as possible facing forwards, but if you find that your body's at a slight angle, then if you can correct it without twisting up either your knees or your spine, then feel free to do that. But quite often when we try and correct that, we may feel our back tighten. So just accept that in time you'll be able to straighten up, but maybe not right. All of these processes, all of these changes in the body are done over a period of time. Our bodies need to recondition for the postures. They're not our normal postures. We spend a lot of time quite habitually and unconsciously straining upwards, straining against the pull of gravity and so on. One of the great sort of benefits, one of the lovely things that can come out of this attention to the releasing moment is the effect it has on your mind as well. An exercise like this can become quite frenetic, so forwards, backwards. But here we see that feeling of releasing also relates to another really important concept in Tai Chi, which is that the movement contains a quality of stillness. It's this calmness, the stillness of our minds. When you go into your back foot and release this time, just gently raise your front toes. You can turn the front foot out a little bit because this can help more weight to go down into the foot. When you're on the front foot, push your back knee forwards and you'll find your back heel comes up as well as the feeling of your hip dropping. And so gradually, more and more of your weight flows down through each leg. And gradually, we find ourselves aligning our body. Remember the alignment with the pull of gravity over one leg rather than use two. Remember, we want to try and keep hips and pelvis level. So try and avoid something like, say, this as your heel comes up, the shoulders go forwards. It shouldn't be necessary, but again, it's a habit that we often have. So when we release in the hips, we sink down and say our back knee pushes forward, we realize that, again, the significance of that releasing, that quality of soul, is that it helps to initiate the movement of our foot and leg. And we get to a point where we come to here and bring the foot in. Step out, put your heel down, lower your toes, feel the contact with the floor as you move your weight in. Raise the heel, bring the foot back. This time when you step backwards, it's the ball of your foot that goes down first, and then your heel, and then your weight move. Imagine you're going to walk on thin ice and you want to plant the foot down, phrase that we use, and just almost push the foot in a little bit to test the ice before you commit your weight. It's the same both forwards and backwards. So if for instance, you put your foot down, you just tested the ice and it cracked, you wouldn't want to commit your weight, you might want to bring the foot back or something like that. Sinking down through the supporting leg, aligning over the supporting leg. Now, have your left foot forward, so turn your right foot out. You may find that that rooting down, that aligning, is more successful over one leg than another. That's quite common. We'll start the whole process again. It can be quite interesting as you get used to this exercise to compare what's happening on one side and another, what's working on each side. What would you like to have in place? What would you like to cultivate in maybe the leg that you're a bit more wobbly on? This is a very key exercise. It can have a massive impact on our general stability and mobility. You also condition the legs. Try not to grip tightly in your knees or your ankles or your hips, of course. Try not to come up and down as well. There'll be a little bit of that probably. Phrase we use sometimes is that our legs fill and empty. And if you were to get two glasses, one full of water, the other one empty, and you poured the water from one glass to another, the water would drop straight down to the bottom and fill up. Again, that's something we want to try and bring into this, rather than as we go forward thinking, oh, I'm going to release the hip and down that, and the weight slowly going down. I want the weight to drop straight down to the foot and then fill upwards towards our hip. And then again, beginning to raise toes and heel. Thinking about the alignment of your pelvis. These things are not consistent in my experience. You may experience a slight tilt in your pelvis. But of course, we start to realize the ideal that we're aiming for, and we get closer and closer to it, and it means that we can begin to correct. And again, those moments of stillness, those moments of clarity in our mind are very useful for them. Begin to bring your foot in, the leg contracts and expands. And notice that I'm just putting my toes down. In that moment, I put my toes down. I have the opportunity to get a sense of what's happening in the center of my body. Am I still allowing it to drop? Are my hips still level? So on. The transfer of our weight is another major source of energy. We have the downward and upward movement, with gravity and the response of the body. There's a very strong kinetic energy that we make use of. And then we also have the movement of the weight forwards. And then take some steps through, either forwards or backwards, depending on where you've got the space. Just give yourself a chance to reflect on this process of walking that we so often take for granted. I'm going to change direction now. Again, have your right foot forwards. Again, mirror my movements. Now we bring the upper body and the arms back into the movement. Start with your weight in your back foot, going forwards, and as you settle into the front and release, feel how your arms just swing out. This is called fisherman castanet. So again, that wave-like energy of the transfer of your weight comes through your back into your arms, moving your arms for you. We're moving forwards and backwards. We're facing forwards. Your arms are swinging forwards. And back. This time, though, as you go back, turn a little bit to your left. So you turn in the direction of the back foot, and that draws your arms and your hands and your fingers more across your body. Notice how the arms quite naturally curve. They swing down and up. And this time you go into your back foot and just extend that curve, expanding in the left side of your body. Go forwards, let the hands come down, cross the front hip, turn out just a little bit, expanding in the right side of your body and back. Your hands moving through these interlinked circles, as though they're tracing a sideways figure of 8. Some people like to think of this as being like the infinity sign used in math and physics. Don't overextend your arms or raise them too high. When you go forwards this time, push your back knee forwards, bring your foot in, and you turn, and then before you move, of course, you step back. When you put in, toes go down, just check again what's happening in the center of your body. And you may find it comfortable just to slowly bring your knee up. So your hands are pulling your knee up and then step back. But you want to try and keep your hips and your pelvis level as you raise your knee. If you're finding you're doing that, then maybe just keep your foot on the ground. It's not a key part of the exercise. And the energy comes up through your legs, filling your upper body, moving your arms for you. Shake out. Left foot forwards, keep the width of your step. Start on your back foot, fisherman cast them. Just trying to get that sense of your whole body now moving as one unit. The energy flowing freely. May be able to bring your attention and your intention to release the areas where that doesn't seem to be happening. And this links what we're doing with traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture and so on, trying to just restore, cultivate that free flow of energy. And in turn, let that extend into the figure of 8. Turning your front foot out a little bit so that now you can start to bring your back foot in. Maybe raising your knee up, maybe not. Feel comfortable in the movement. Remember, it's really what's happening within the body, that flow of movement, flow of energy. And then take a step through, again, either forwards or backwards. Remember, so we test the ice, and we take the step. I'm going to change direction now before I bump into the camera. And then bring your feet up. Now, just rubbing your hands together. So the palms and fingers get a little bit warm. And then with the pads of your fingers, tapping over your face. Work up over your head with the palm of your hand or with your fingers. Down to one shoulder. And then down the inside of your arm and up the outside. And the other side. With one hand or with both hands onto your back, lay the light on your back. It's as much of your back as you can comfortably cover. Going around your hips and buttocks. Down the outside of your legs and up the inside. Light on your belly. Finally on that part of the chest. And for the final movement, return into the theme of returning. And how we can come back to these moments of stillness, of being rooted, of being grounded. How we extend out. This happens in our daily lives. We lose these things, but coming back. So it's called Embrace Tiger, Return to the Mountain. Letting your hips sink down. Push up. Still aware of the pull of gravity through your body. Releasing in hips and shoulders, drawing your hands around as though you're holding the ball against your chest, and then hand being drawn in and sinking down. And just get a sense for what it is going to bring you back. Easy and gentle. Embrace Tiger, return to man. It's time to let your hands drop down to your sides. Close your eyes if it helps. Just rest in this position. Open your eyes. Thank you very much for watching and joining in, everybody. As always, if you do have any questions at any point, feel free to email me.